So today I'm going to talk about building a smart mirror. Let me share my slides. Excellent. Um, my name is Julie. I am a software engineer by trade and a side hustle queen. Um, and I love making stuff. I'm part of a makerspace in Hartford, Connecticut, and I just have a blast seeing all these cool projects of people integrating all different sorts of electronics projects with art projects. And in that world, I've been inspired to build a smart mirror. I built my smart mirror for my master's thesis in computer science. And it was a funny story because I decided to write and do research on how a smart mirror fits in consumer production, and why don't people have smart mirrors if it's been around for a while, and it seems like something that people would really like. So I decided to build a smart mirror, test it with myself and test it with some of my friends, and see what we thought of it. So I did a ton of research to gather exactly what people wanted out of a smart mirror, and built that smart mirror that people said that they wanted. And sure enough, none of us used it. And I will explain why. Smart mirrors are super fun to make, so fun to have, and not that useful. So a smart mirror is a reflective surface with an electronic display behind it. I've got my smart mirror behind me. It is on, but you can't really see it because the reflective surface is doing a great job right now with some light in the room. I would also like to admit that this morning I went to go turn my smart mirror on. I hadn't had it on in a little while because it does use a lot of bandwidth, and I have been doing a lot more video calls lately. So I went to go turn it on and I realized that I have lost the remote. So I had to drive around looking for a universal remote this morning, which apparently in the age of smart TVs is not a common thing anymore. But we've got it on, we've got it running. So it's all good and it's super cool. So why should you build a smart mirror? They look super fancy. If your aesthetic is kind of that high-tech, minimalist like look in your home, and you want to impress all of your friends with your super cool, fancy, expensive looking gadgets, then building a smart mirror is an awesome way to do that, because building a smart mirror is a lot less expensive than buying one. The reason why I built a smart mirror was to learn stuff. I have that maker mentality of, I don't know how to do this, so I'm gonna do it, and then I will know how to do it. And so I wanted to play around with Raspberry Pi, and so I thought, hey, a smart mirror sounds like a great project because I would get to do some of my web development in building the information that I wanted to see on the screen. And I wanted to play with some electronics and have a cool thing in my house. And they are somewhat useful. If you just want something to look at for a quick glance for some important information that's super customized to you, then they're awesome. So my first inspiration to build a smart mirror came from searching around Instructables.com, as much of my inspiration often does. And I was looking at Raspberry Pi projects and I saw this smart mirror, and I saw that that's not that complicated. That's not that many components. And I, enjoy doing like physical designs too. So I thought, hey, this is cool. I would get to explore a lot of different components here, and I have an extra monitor lying around. So I had an old TV, and I knew that I could get some two-way mirror glass, and I had my Raspberry Pi, so I was ready to go. I could build this. So I did some research on what smart mirrors are out there already, and I saw some really interesting smart mirror designs and some things that have reached the consumer market at this point. In the fitness space, there are some smart mirrors that will analyze body shape and suggest specific exercises, some that will analyze you as you're doing your exercises and tell you how you're doing, if you're doing them right. Some will keep track of the reps that you do so that you have your fitness log. Some other potential ways to use a smart mirror in the fitness space are with choreography. If you're trying to learn to dance, you can be watching your instructor in the mirror, watching yourself at the same time, And if you use maybe some form of machine learning or artificial intelligence, you would be able to see exactly how you're doing in the dance that was given to you. In education, with teaching physical therapy from a distance, another interesting way to kind of incorporate remote learning right now that's happening more frequently. If you're trying to teach physical therapy, then you can use this in a way where your patient is seeing themselves do the exercise and also seeing you do the exercise at the same time. And I read a research paper on somebody who had built a smart mirror to practice conducting an orchestra. Normally you don't get a lot of time to practice conducting the orchestra because you need an orchestra to do that. So with having that that ability to see yourself and have it being analyzed to see that you're making the correct movements at the correct timing is another really interesting way to use smart mirrors. In dentistry and health, there have also been some smart mirror developments where there's a smart mirror that was developed by a dental school in China that actually watches you brush your teeth and will analyze how well you're doing at brushing your teeth. So it will effectively teach you. And in skincare, that's where we're also seeing a lot of development and consumer smart mirrors coming out right now, where they're tracking skincare routines. They can do analysis on your skin quality and they can recommend products. Also, they can suggest makeup looks and they can like try on makeup looks in the mirror. It's very, very cool. I'm very excited to see how that goes. So yes, you can absolutely buy a smart mirror, but what's the fun in that when they're actually pretty easy to make and there's a lot of open source code, so you don't even need to know how to write your own code. So I got down to planning on how I was going to build my smart mirror and the things that I knew that I needed. A display, two-way mirror glass, and the computer brains. I have several options for computer brains, however I want to power that screen and show the display. But I already knew that I was going to use Raspberry Pi in my case. And I also started to think about what other things can I integrate? What other hardware components can I integrate into the smart mirror? Should I put in a camera? And I thought about putting in 2 cameras so that it actually can track and map your face and maybe do some like silly Snapchat filters or something. A microphone, did I want any voice commands in any way on my smart mirror? I don't know. Sensors, motion sensors, so that maybe the display is always dark and it just looks like a regular mirror until I go stand in front of the mirror. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities. And then I had to decide what exactly it was that I wanted to display so that I knew what level of other sensors and other components I was going to need to add. So I did a bunch of research in this area on what people wanted to see when they were in their homes. What information were they looking for when they were just sitting at home and they didn't want to take out their phones? And most people said that they wanted their social media notifications to come up, that if they weren't looking at their phone, that maybe they just wanted it to come up on the mirror so that they could see it at a glance. And most other people also said time and date is an important piece of information, and weather is also an important piece of information. When I'm inside my house, I might not know what it's like outside, but if I could get that information at a quick glance, then that's great. That's helpful to me. So it was really interesting to kind of see what people cared about when they're just sitting in their houses. So I decided on the information that was important for me, which was my calendar, the time, the weather, and I integrated Twitter notifications. And then I also started thinking about all of the other nonsense that I could add. So one project that I added that I don't think you're gonna get to see in the smart mirror behind me right now, but if you, at a certain time, there's a cat face that comes up in the corner. So there's a lot of just like fun and interactive things that you can build into your smart mirror. So with the information that I decided that I do want to display, I have to think about what level of interaction I'm going to need with this device. And this also was an interesting challenge because most people's gut instinct about how do you interact with a digital device is, oh, it's probably a touch screen. Well, I don't want smudges on my mirror. So a touchscreen wasn't the best option in this case. And also to have a touchscreen that has that two-way reflective surface is quite expensive. I could use voice control. I did look into integrating like an Alexa module, and so I could possibly ask for different pieces of information using Alexa. And in that case, I didn't really want to be locked into that voice control system. I also looked into gesture detection and using those leap pad things that are very, very cool, or using just the camera that you can connect to a Raspberry Pi that will be able to see you move around. But the con to that is that if somebody else were to use it, they would need to know the gestures that are defined in the software. But as I thought about it, I realized that the information that I need, I can really update just in the web page itself. I can just poll every 15 minutes for new tweets. I can just set up my clock. I can poll every 15 minutes for a weather update. So I was able to not really have to think about how that interaction was going to happen and just do that on in my code. Sorry, the slides move slow. There we go. So my decisions were to use my Raspberry Pi. I'm displaying the time, the weather, my Google Calendar, some messages from friends through Twitter, and my to-do list. So I decided again that I didn't need to interact with it. I do really want to integrate the camera with it. So that's kind of in my next steps. And what kind of two-way mirror did I want to use? Because there's options for either getting this like film that you can just put directly onto the screen, or you can get acrylic two-way mirror, or you can get the glass two-way mirror. And I decided to go with the glass two-way mirror, even though it's definitely the most expensive of those options, just because I really think that it looks nicer. So in starting to plan our software, there are a lot of options to make smart mirrors without having to write any code. There's a ton of cool open source projects. There is a bunch of Android apps that you could just download and customize yourself in the app. But I am a stubborn programmer, so I need to do everything myself to get it exactly how I want it, whether that's going to be better than the existing solutions or not. So I decided to write my own software for it so that I could design it myself. And I decided to use the Open Weather Map API for weather, Google Calendar for my calendar, and Twitter to get those messages from my friends. And in thinking about the page layout, I needed to consider how visible the display was going to be behind the two-way mirror glass. As you can see in the daylight, it's not really that visible anyways. So I wanted to make sure that I had the highest contrast, a black screen with white letters, and I wanted a bunch of space in the middle of my design so that when I'm just looking in the mirror and trying to use it as a mirror, I have plenty of space that I'm just seeing my face. And so once I got everything up and running, my web page looked good, like I liked it. With Raspberry Pi, it's awesome because you just plug it right into the HDMI port and the display. And so I plugged it in and I got everything up and running using SSH, and I was able to just access my Raspberry Pi right from my computer. Raspberry Pis connect to your home Wi-Fi network, so you can use them as web servers, you can use them just to display a web page. And so I installed the Chromium app onto my Raspberry Pi, and I set up kiosk mode. And then I set it so that every time I boot up the Raspberry Pi, it automatically goes to kiosk mode to the website that I set it at. So it goes right to the web server that's running my web page with all of my information. And so when I went to go put it all together, some of the gotchas that I experienced, the glass store did not size the glass exactly to the measurements that I told them. So there is a little bit of an edge around it. And I'm a lazy bum who has not yet built a beautiful wooden frame to go around it. So you can see a little bit of the edge there. And another reason why I kind of want to cover around the edge of it, and I'll bring my computer a little bit closer, is I tried a billion different adhesives to try to get that two-way mirror glass to stick to the display. And the only one that I could get to work is E6000, which is a very high test adhesive. And this two-way mirror glass is never coming off of this display. But I'll move the computer a little bit closer there so you can kind of see around the edges. And so once I put everything together, I had this. And so I had the time and weather for my location. I had my to-do list. Personally, I do my to-do list with 3 things. And I do that to-do list organization pattern. And have my notifications there and my schedule. So that was good, and just good to be able to look over really quick and get that information. So the takeaways here are, if you are interested in doing a project like this, do it, absolutely do it. This is a super fun thing to build. Will you use your smart mirror all the time? Maybe not. I learned that I spend about 5 minutes a day looking in a mirror, sometimes less than that, if I don't have any Zoom calls at this point. But it is a super fun project to do. You will learn a lot about how to get your Raspberry Pi up and running, and you will be inspired to do a ton of other projects. It is highly customizable, so if you have lots of cool ideas stemming off from this, you do want to integrate some of those sensors, then you absolutely have that flexibility to do this with this device, which is so sick. So think about what it is, what information do you wish that you had quicker access to? What sort of things do you wish that you could see when you're looking in the mirror? What information do you want right then? And definitely, like, this is an interesting space to keep an eye on. There's a lot of cool development that's going on here, and a lot of interesting things are being done with image processing, where they're able to run a lot of analysis on exactly what you're seeing when you look in the mirror and what a camera is seeing behind the mirror, and get valuable information out to you that way. So any day now, Google Slides, there we go. So if you are interested, and I'll definitely have this slide deck posted, there's some awesome guides for how to build your own smart mirror, and there's some of that open source software. magicmirror.builders is an open source, totally modular software where people have contributed different modules so that you can easily plug and play and say, hey, I want to include this specific Facebook feed here. I want to include scores from the Boston Red Sox here. And so you can build your own, or you can use the already existing ones, and there are a ton available. Smart Mirror Guide talks a lot about the materials that you could use. I personally used just a display that I already had, and I got the two-way mirror glass at a local glass cutters that I knew. But they talk about different places where you can order it, and sourcing the glass is pretty difficult. Two-way mirror glass can actually be pretty hard to find. And if anybody does decide to build a smart mirror, I would absolutely love to talk about it. I've done hours and hours of research into smart mirrors, and I'm excited to see what kind of creativity stems from them. So do reach out to me on Twitter. I'm @JulieGoat, or send me an email.